Over the last 3 years, my team and I have been testing different identity theft protection services from across the market. But today we are going to take an honest look at LifeLock. Now, you probably already know the name LifeLock. They're kind of the first name that you think of when it comes to this kind of product. And that is because they spent a great sum of money to make sure that that was the case. They put a ton of money into advertising. You've probably seen their TV commercials and banner ads all across the internet. But the question today is LifeLock really worth it in 2025? They are not a scam, and they do what they say they're going to do. But after testing their service and comparing it with other services currently on the market for several months, I have some thoughts that you might want to hear before you sign up. Now, if you're already sold on LifeLock, there is more than likely a link in the description below that will give you a discount on their service. But let's dive in and sort of talk about what you're actually getting when you sign up for this service. All right, let's start with what LifeLock actually is. So they are an identity theft protection service that monitors your personal information and then sends you an alert if something sketchy were to come up. They have 3 main plans. It's their Standard, Advantage, and Ultimate Plus, the prices of which you are likely seeing on your screen right now. Here is where things get a little frustrating, and it's something that I wish I had known when I first started looking into these identity theft protection services. LifeLock's Standard plan only monitors 1 out of the 3 major credit bureaus. So while you have a credit report with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, their most basic plans and their Advantage plan only cover 1 of those 3 credit bureaus. Let's say your house has 3 front doors, all right next to each other. And if you're only monitoring 1 credit bureau, it's like you're only locking 1 of those 3 doors. And if you're only monitoring 1, they are unlocked. They can fully get into your house through either of those doors. This is why it's really infuriating, and I can't really recommend LifeLock's basic or Advantage plans. If you're going to be going with LifeLock, it's really Ultimate Plus or bust, because those plans are the only ones that offer 3 bureau credit monitoring. You can also obviously take a look at some of their competitors, which we will talk about later on in this video. LifeLock loves to talk up their insurance, up to $3 million in coverage on their most, premium plan. Now, let me tell you what that actually looks like in practice, because the fine print it's fine print for a reason. So that $3 million number gets split into different buckets, like stolen funds, lost wages, legal fees, that sort of thing. Now, on their, again, Ultimate Plus plan, it becomes less of an issue because of that $3 million number, right? But if you do end up going on their lower tier plans, that number at the top gets smaller, and therefore all of the other buckets get smaller as well. So it's like, oh, I'm covered up to $1 million. It's like, well, that's not $1 million in stolen funds. That's actually, 25,000 in stolen funds, and then 15 in lost wages, and then this much in legal fees. Data broker removal. So this is where they help get your information off of sketchy websites that like to sell your personal data. And it sounds great, right? In theory. In practice, it's a little more complicated than they make it sound. So LifeLock works with a specific list of 19 data broker sites. And depending on the plan that you're on, let's say you're on the basic plan, you might just end up getting an alert that says, hey, we found your information on WhitePages.com. And then it's on you to actually go through with removing that personal information. Now, on their Ultimate Plus plan, they do handle the actual removal request process automatically, but they're really not covering every data broker site out there. This is the thing about data broker removal, and it's not just a LifeLock thing. It is an industry-wide thing. It's a bit like playing whack-a-mole. They delete your info over here, it popped up on 3 more sites, or data broker sites change their names, or new ones are just constantly popping up all the time, and it's hard to keep track of where information is even posted, not to mention that, you can request removal and they'll take it down, and then, it has a funny little way of finding its way back to that same website. It's an ongoing battle, no matter which service you end up using to try and get rid of it. Now, anything is better than trying to do it all yourself. However, again, on their most basic plans, they're essentially just giving you a heads up that like,
hey, we found your information over here. Do you want to take care of that? You take care of it,
We tested LifeLock alongside some of the other major competitors on the market, including Aura, Identity Guard, and a few of the smaller companies. And while they all have their strengths and their weaknesses, where the differences really start to show through is what you end up getting for each price point. Now, LifeLock's biggest selling point is probably the brand itself. It's a name people know. They've been around since 2005, and they have a huge presence, TV ads, partnerships, the whole deal. It's a brand people recognize, and that gives some sort of legitimacy to their operation. And also their customer support is pretty solid. In my testing, I've gotten good agents who have answered my questions and been very knowledgeable, but at the same time, I've also gotten some that it's a little more hit or miss. So, that is a bit of a, not really a sticking point, but just something to be aware of. Where things get a little more complicated is when you look at what you're getting at each of these individual price points. And LifeLock's lower tier plan looks like an affordable option up front, but like I said, it loses out on some major features that I consider essential, like 3-bureau credit monitoring, or offering higher insurance limits. So to get the level of protection that's really competitive to what else is on the market, you really have to go with their highest tier plan, which I find kind of frustrating. And another thing, with regards to their customer service, if you're on one of their lower paid plans, they're often also trying to upsell you to a higher paid plan for the different services that they offer. So if I'm calling to get help, I don't want a sales pitch, I just want help. And that can, that can be very frustrating as well. If you're willing to pay for the Ultimate Plus plan, you're going to be getting some pretty solid coverage. They offer, at that level, they check most of the boxes and give you some pretty solid protection. But even then, Aura still comes out on top with some of the features that they have just built in. They have 3-bureau credit monitoring on every plan. They do a better job at data broker removal. So even at their top tier plan, LifeLock is really my second place recommendation behind Aura. So, I mean, you can consider that for yourself. In a world where Aura didn't exist, I would probably go with LifeLock's Ultimate Plus. But again, we live in a world where Aura exists, so do with that what you will. Here's the deal. Identity theft protection is important, and LifeLock does provide real protection. Now, the most important thing is that you get some form of identity theft protection, because the unfortunate reality is identity theft is so much more common than any of us want to admit. And having identity monitoring in place is so much better than crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, because the reality is, if the worst happens, it's going to cost a lot more money and a lot more time than paying a little month to month to make sure that things are covered. You got insurance for your house, you got insurance for your car, you should have insurance for your identity. But before you go forward with any service, make sure to read through what it is you're actually signing up for and what kind of coverage you'll be getting. That is all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate these videos, please consider subscribing. There are discount links in the description below. If you want to try any of these services, you can save a few bucks up front. That is all we have. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.